All right, welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and go right into the number 8 player on our top 25 players in the NBA list. Davis, who do you have there?
I have Nikola Jokic right there. And I am very confident with that pick. So here's why. So we have never seen, a point guard center hybrid quite like we have with Nikola Jokic. He's improved so much, so quickly. Early on when he was kind of getting some of those facilitator roles for their Nugget system, he was kind of struggling to make the correct reads in a lot of situations. But as we've seen more and more as time goes on, Jokic is getting better and better at making the correct reads, finding, and especially, there's a lot that having a center that's able to facilitate opens up for your team. And I think any team, kind of like we used to talk about with Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is a guy you can plug on any team and they instantly get better. I feel the exact same way about Jokic, because there's not a lot that you know like there's only a very small handful of centers in the NBA that really elevate the level of play of their team. And I think Jokic does it by far and away more than any other center, just in terms of what he's able to bring. Yes, he's not the best defensive presence down low, but in terms of what he is able to facilitate in the vision, and whenever a center gets the ball up top at the point of the key, um, it allows for just more slashing because there's that that vacancy down low, and so there's just a lot more that you're able to flex. Be able to maneuver and scheme into your offense if you have someone like Jokic in your roster, and he's so lethal down low. He can make it from three. I just love Jokic. Who's your eight?
So before I read off my 8, for some weird reason, I feel like not necessarily in the same order, but in terms of the players there, we have this same 8, 9, and 10.
Oh, okay, yeah. I
So,
guarantee we have same nine, same 10. So,
so who's your 9
Luka Doncic,
and who's your 10?
Damian Lillard.
Yeah. Okay. So we have the 3 same there. So
Oh,
we can toy around with the with how we want to set this up. But I have Luka at 8. I have
okay,
Dame at 9. Jokic at 10. The only reason why
okay.
I have Jokic behind the other two is, and all 3 of these guys are incredibly entertaining players to watch. I absolutely love watching them play. They elevate all their teams respectively. They're incredible players. For me, the reason why I have Jokic at 10 is because Dame is a guy that can put up James Harden numbers on a given night. He's not as consistent
Yeah.
as Harden, but I mean, we saw him last year dropping 50, 60-point games. And so that's what gave me that slight edge there. And then I had Luka at 8 because we all know what he can do. I mean, the dude is in his 3rd season, and he's probably going to end up averaging 30, 10, and 9, something similar to that. And so, and I mean, he's going to be an MVP candidate this year. Jokic, again, really early, only like 4 games so far in the season, but he's been playing out of his mind. I think he's had a triple-double in every single game they played. He put up a
He had
career
like
high,
18
18
assists.
assists. Yeah, he had 18
Yeah,
assists,
that's
career
nuts.
high. He's been playing psychotic. He also, not going to lie, might be a dark horse MVP pick this year. But yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's safe to say all 3 of these guys are kind of set in that 8 to 10 range. I'm cool with whatever you kind of want to do here in terms of shuffling that around.
I'm
I
okay
think it's
putting
pretty slight
Luka,
edge between all
Jokic,
3.
Dame.
Say that again.
Luka, Jokic, Dame.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. That'll
Okay,
work.
perfect. And the only reason, I think, well, we were talking a little bit off the air, but I switched my 8 and 9 around at the last second. I did actually have Luka at
Look at
8 and
8.
Jokic at 9 to begin. But the reason why I wanted to put Jokic over Dame is I think the difference between, okay, how do I word this? So Jokic's defensive ability compared to, or yeah, so okay, so Dame's horrible at defense. Like he can't
Correct.
really bring it any given night. Like we see kind of Harden can kind of tap into that in the playoffs, and some of these other players kind of can bring it when they want. Dame doesn't really have that tool set. And I think at least Jokic is serviceable on defense. And So kind of, I think for that reason, because we're prioritizing defense a little bit in this rankings, we should absolutely have Jokic ahead of Dame. But because I mean, there's a lot of real good guards in this league, and we'll get to some here in this 11 through 15 range, I'm sure. But yeah, absolutely. I think we're good
All
going into the
right.
next range. I'm curious to see how much of the same we've had in common.
I feel
It's
like
kind
we
of
have the
eerie.
same. I feel like we have the same number 11, but after 11, I think it's going to be pretty up in the air on everything else from then on out.
My 12 is spicy. I'll tell you that. My 12 is
Oh
spicy.
boy! All right, so at 11, I have Embiid.
I have Jayson Tatum.
Really? Who do you?
Yeah,
Where do you have Embiid?
16.
Stop it! Stop it,
No, we're not
Davis.
talking about.
Davis, don't do
You
that to our
always do
listeners.
this
Don't do
narrative.
that to our
Stop
listeners.
it.
Our
Oh
listeners
my
don't need to
goodness.
hear that. Okay, Joel Embiid is a walking 28 and 12. The dude is the second best center in the league without a doubt. I'm surprised you have him at 16. I was like, oh, he probably has him at 12, maybe 13. You think he's the 16th best player in the NBA? Really?
Well, okay, you have to go back to my logic when I was constructing my list is, if I'm having a player for one season to, help me win a championship, who am I signing on my roster? Joel Embiid has had a history of injury
That's
concerns, and
true.
that plays a factor for me. Same reason Kristaps Porzingis does not make an appearance on my list, even though the talent's there, he's not able to stay healthy. So absolutely, I know that Embiid brings it on the defensive level, and he's dominant down low. I get all these things, and he's still my next best center available on this list. I just have some non-centers that I think. I think this is a wing-centric league right now, and for good reason. And there's some good two-way players that I have above him that I still think are deserving of that. Jayson Tatum is another one of those guys. If I'm trying to sell Jayson Tatum at 11 here,
I have Jayson Tatum at 12, so you don't have to sell me too much.
okay, perfect. Yeah, but I just think Jayson Tatum is another one of those a small percentage of players that's able to kind of drop a silent 35, 40 on a night and kind of dominate a game unlike a lot of players, just in terms of whatever he's able to bring in the isolation package. And a fun fact, I believe as of yesterday, he only had 4 free throw attempts on the season, which is actually wild because he's still putting up great numbers. But doing that without, drawing a lot of fouls, attacking the rim, and getting those free points is just another aspect of once he's able to figure that aspect of his game out a little bit more, which we've seen in the past from Jayson Tatum. It's just early on this season he hasn't really showcased that ability as much as he has in the past. But he could be averaging 30 pretty easily if he just starts initiating a little bit more contact and starts getting back into that craft a little bit more. But yeah, I don't want to sell Jayson Tatum too much because I'm okay putting Embiid a little bit higher on this list. Now that I know your reasoning and that you weren't really taking into account injuries, that's understandable in terms of talent perspective, having Embiid a little bit higher on this list.
So are you cool with maybe doing a Tatum at 11 and Embiid at 12?
It depends who's at your 12.
Well,
Who do
12 is
you?
my Tatum. So my
Who's your
next best
13? Out
available.
of
Yeah,
curiosity.
my 13 is Jimmy Butler.
That's also my 13. Okay, so we can do Tatum, Embiid, Butler.
That works with me. Perfect. All right, who's your 14?
Hold
We'll
on.
do our 14th and then we'll do a
Tatum,
next break.
Embiid, Butler. Okay, well, Jimmy Butler was my 13, but my 12 is still on the board.
Oh, who's your
And this
12?
is where I was saying it was a little wild. Kyrie Irving as number 12. So I know
I'll
Kyrie
hear
is
you out.
another one of those players that has a lot of drama concerns, and people just, aren't really too impressed by the legacy that he might be able to leave compared to a lot of these other players. But in the same line of thought, I think he's still a top 3 point guard in this league pretty easily. Um, after Steph and Luka, well, I guess Dame's still in there. So top four. But I think it's blasphemy that Kyrie isn't in this top 15 conversation as easily as like for a lot of people. Because whenever I watch him, I feel like he's okay, well, it doesn't bode well that he's played with LeBron and he's now playing with KD. So I can't say he's the best player on the court, but he is a remarkable athlete and very gifted in terms of his craftiness and around the rim, his ability to initiate contact and still finish, his mid-range floating game whenever he's trying to change his direction, change his tempo. I just think he has a very in terms of what a point guard should be and what a point guard should be capable of being able to deliver. I think Kyrie Irving is a player that every young point guard should aspire to be like. And I don't really see any reason why Kyrie Irving shouldn't be higher on more people's lists. He does have that clutch factor, as we've seen in the past. It is one of the reasons that LeBron James has some of the rings that he does.
So I have Kyrie Irving close to that. I don't want to get exactly where he is into just yet because
Yeah, some
when
other
I'm
players
looking
in
at
the
my
mix.
list, I kind of want to switch him with another player. But at 14, I have Bradley Beal. I think Bradley Beal, in terms of what he can bring every given night on the offensive end, is better than Kyrie. I think Kyrie is more talented and he does way more spectacular, flashy things. He's got the best handles in the league. He's the best under the basket finisher, maybe of all time. I mean, he's incredible at finishing at the rim. He's so crafty. I just think Bradley Beal, I mean, the dude averaged 30 last year. I know he plays on just a god-awful team in the Wizards, winless so far this season, but I don't know. I mean, if I'm taking Bradley Beal or Kyrie, if I'm having to pick, and I know that's kind of more of your criteria of how you picked, I just think Bradley Beal is a better player than Kyrie Irving at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the lack of team success is why I didn't have Beal a little bit higher, because I do like these guys that are able to be leaders a little bit more in their own right. Not that
I think that's fair.
Kyrie's, the best leader. So that's kind of a
That's
loose
true.
argument in terms of him. But some of these other players that I have above him, I'll just get into it now. Like I have Jimmy. Well, we already did Jimmy Butler. But right after Kyrie and going to Bradley Beal, I have Jimmy Butler, Donovan Mitchell, Paul George, Joel Embiid, then Bradley Beal. And I think a lot of those players, whether it's Paul George or Jimmy Butler, both bring it on the defensive side as much as they do on the offensive side, which I think is something that we value here at Junkie Sports. And then Donovan Mitchell and Bradley Beal are very similar players to me, just in terms of being able to kind of take over a game and dominate and get all the scoring opportunities, done. I do think Bradley Beal is probably better at attacking the rim, and he's been doing a good job of that early in the season than Donovan Mitchell. But Donovan Mitchell, I think, excels pretty well in the half court offensive set. Not that Bradley Beal doesn't. I don't know. I see both of those players very similarly. I think if you were to swap those two players and their teams that they're on, I think their stats would be identical. Like if you put Donovan Mitchell on the Wizards, he'd probably be putting Bradley Beal numbers up. And if you put Bradley Beal on the Jazz, I think he'd be putting Donovan Mitchell numbers up.
I think
Just
Bradley Beal is Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, and like Donovan Mitchell in 3 years will be Bradley Beal. I think Bradley Beal is way more consistent than Donovan Mitchell. Like night and day more consistent. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, for example, we look at last playoffs, dude's putting up 50, and then we see him in the regular season, and it's not consistent. I think, and Bradley Beal is someone who I think can put up that 50 in the playoffs, and then he's going to come around and average 30 in the regular season. I just think, and again,
we
Bradley
wouldn't
Beal
know. We
plays
don't
on a
see him
bad
in the
team, but
playoffs. When was the
that's
last
true.
time we've seen Bradley Beal in the playoffs? I
That
mean,
is a
we need
great
we need
question.
we need previous John Wall pre-injury to answer that
True,
question.
true.
But
I just think at the end of the day, Bradley Beal, like when I just look at it, I'm just like Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, who's a better player? To me, it's just Bradley Beal. And that's why I have him
so
ahead.
So where who are your next couple guys just to kind of help make this process a little
So
easier?
I need to switch two of them around. So I'm going to read it with my switch because
Okay. Yeah, we
I do
don't know
want to
your
change
list.
that.
Just tell us your order.
So I had Bradley Beal at 14. Then my 15 would be Kyrie, and then my 16 would be Karl Anthony Towns.
Okay. So in that respect, I am okay putting Beal ahead of Kyrie. I'll concede on that because I do think Beal is one of those special talents that's able to, drop 40, 45 on any given night and not surprise anyone. And that, offensive production is something that needs to be garnered. So we'll put Beal in at our 14 and Kyrie in at our 15. And then we need to have a discussion on this Karl Anthony Towns situation because
Oh boy,
I still have Donovan Mitchell and Paul George on the board. I don't know about you.
you're not
Well,
gonna like
obviously.
where I have Donovan Mitchell.
All right.
You're not gonna like. Do you want to do a quick break first?
Yeah, I think we
All
need
right,
we need.
read off our 8 through 15 real quick.
All right, so we have Luka Doncic at 8, followed by Nikola Jokic, Damian Lillard, Jayson Tatum. At 12, we have Joel Embiid, followed by Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal, and Kyrie Irving at 15.
All right, let's take our second break.